how behavior
Now
is
we are.
reflected in public leadership. I think ethics in general, like if you have good ethics, people will follow you. For instance, your parents always like preach on good ethics, like just such as manners, and that will lead to people to follow you from leadership standpoint. And then how ethical behavior is reflected on public leadership. Obviously, you want to have good ethics so that the public can see that and refer to you later on to help you like become a leader. But that's how I kind of looked at it.
I can go off on what Colin says. I'll jump in. All right, good job, Colin. That's for you. I what he said that, I think for leaders, I think they have to. I think they have to understand ethical dilemmas in their organizations, but I think they have to have a good understanding of ethics. But when I think of like an ethical leader, I think of someone that really just kind of that acts on their moral compass. I think someone that's kind of driven by their moral compass in a way. Kind of, what that way, like that moral compass influences how they act, their decision making. I mean, if someone's kind of a crummy person, I don't think they're going to be that great of an ethical leader. I think they'll kind of get in trouble. I think of an ethical leader, I think of someone that's just on their moral compass. So I think just building off of what Colin said, I think it's important for leaders to understand ethical dilemmas, but also just be guided by kind of who they are, and if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I thought it was interesting because whenever I think of like ethics or moral compass, I feel like I always have a very streamlined idea of, I don't know if you guys have this too, but like there's so many different aspects that go into being an ethical leader that I wasn't really aware of, that when I was reading, like even things such as like keeping information from your team that they necessarily need, or like the challenge of power that the book talks about, stuff like that is, I don't know, I found it interesting and I had never really thought about it. I don't know if you guys had ever thought about that or found.
Yeah, definitely. I liked how you thought it was interesting that ethical leader, there are challenges of responsibility, there are challenges of power, just to be an ethical leader. Because let me start with this. On page 352, it gives a definition of a virtue of an ethical leader, which is a deep-rooted disposition, skills, traits, or character to perceive, feel, and act in sensitive ways. So an ethical leader is very positive and is very genuine. I think that's what an ethical leader is.
All right, to go off of it, to go play the other side, with like an ethical leader, we have someone in the White House right now who can be seen as an unethical leader with some of his antics at times, and yet he still is in office and still can kind of carry out like those unethical things that he's done in the past and continues to do, but as a leader, he still represents everyone as a whole, whether he's been like voted or if you voted for him or against him, like, and it just shows that even with like an organization or a business, his ethics reflect all of us and don't reflect our ethics. So you always want a leader to reflect you and your organization, but it's just kind of interesting to see how a leader one person can represent an entire like company, country, whatever. So if anyone wants to kind of piggyback off that.
I'll go ahead and pick up on that. Marcus, you make a good point on like having a leader in charge of something of a bigger community rather than just a small one. I think it would be easier to make ethical choices that go along with everybody, and most people follow along with them being the right ethical choices if you're in a smaller company. But like, if you are the president of the United States, I don't think that the decisions that you make are clear, black and white, and yes and no, because my opinion can be completely different from yours, and what I think is okay, you might think is wrong. So I think that to be a leader in someone of a higher power, it's hard to always say what is ethically correct.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point. I mean, the book even talks about, trying to remember where it was now, but there was one point where it talked about how, consistency. Like, there are some situations that aren't always going to have the same morally or ethically correct answer. And so it's going to vary from situation to situation. So I'm really glad, Jennifer, you brought up that point.
I want to piggyback what Marcus said about a leader, company, or whatever you call it. His or her ethics are going to reflect on the workers. Marcus, I think you made a great point about that, because it's so true. You being on a part of a team, if one of the captains or if one of the do something badly off the pool, really on us. Same so with a workplace, right? Gets fired for doing something really bad, it's just going to reflect really poorly on the whole company.
Yeah, I think whenever you see like a scandal, like something with like the Wells Fargo or like the Uber scandal, stuff like that, where you see a CEO who acted unethical, usually what you see is they're forced to resign, or the company pushes away from like, oh, that's not who we are. And they kind of just try to distance themselves from like an unethical practice or leader or something that was done that doesn't reflect the overall values, even at the top position. That's not like publicly appealing for their brand. So I just think that usually when you are in a position of power, it kind of, you're put on like a pedestal where every little thing that you do that is unethical is magnified. So it's kind of something that when you are in this position, you need to kind of have the responsibility and acknowledge that this is the standard, and you have like a duty to your followers.
Yeah. I think you make a great point, Marcus. You know, like when you are a leader of a big corporation, kind of like Wells Fargo or the President of the United States, like everything you do, criticized or watched very closely. If you are acting, you know, it's going to be like you mentioned, it's going to be so much more noticeable and so much more criticized. And so I think, you know, page 355 was, it talked about authentic leaders, and that was kind of it was just, I think it's important that I think if you are authentic, it kind of prevents you from acting unethically. Authentic leaders know and trust their thoughts and feelings. I mean, you could always say like, Donald Trump, he acts on his thoughts and feelings, but I don't think he's really authentic in a way. But I think it's, when you have a good support group, I think like as a business, it's not just the CEO, you know, you have stockholders and you have a lot of people that influence the process. I mean, Wells Fargo scandal more than just one person. And I think it's good to have that support group to help you with your decisions, whether and act purely on what your own intentions if you feel like something is right, because it could just be something terribly wrong.
Yeah.
Is Colin have anything to add? I know he can't hear us, can he?
Yeah,
I guess
I mean, he has no idea what we're talking about, so.
I guess I'll go when you said like something with Trump where I think honestly what he does do is like he does what he thinks is right, but his judgment is so skewed from like the rest of the country.
Yep.
Even with the white nationalists in was it South Carolina? Where Virginia, that's right. Where I mean, he kind of pushed away and like didn't give like a saying like, oh, this is wrong, like this racism is wrong. He was like, well, people on both sides were, you know, affected, and it's just like, and this is like something that's been kind of going on with even the Obama administration. So it's not just him. Like the racism, but what you want your leader to do is kind of show that it's a you know, a bad thing, and we don't want citizens to hurt or harm each other based on race. And I think like he had a clear path of just saying like, oh, like this is wrong. And what he was trying to do was like say like, oh, you know, like the violence is wrong, but he didn't condemn them or say like, hey, like, what are we going to do to fix this? I just think that's where his ethics in being new to like the political stage, like he still needs to learn and understand how his ethics and his morals like affect the entire country.
Well, that's a great point.
Yeah. I think we all have great points on what makes an ethical leader and how it reflects on public leadership. I know we've talked a lot about the president or like larger corporations having an effect on the public more than it does maybe your manager on you, because you're just one person, to where the president has say in a lot of people's lives. Does anybody else have anything to add before we wrap this up? No?
No, I think we touched on a lot of things.
Okay, well,
I still can't hear you guys, but we'll keep in touch through email about the group project. Thanks for waiting for me.